Now to take what we've been learning and put it in more to a diagram format, taking both the ovarian and uterine cycles and putting together to look at the three main phases. We'll start with the follicular phase. Now remember, in the follicular phase, this is the first 14 days of the cycle. We're looking at, again, GnRH being produced, which goes down to the anterior pituitary, causing both FSH and LH to be secreted, hence the positive green there. That FSH and LH is heading down to the follicles of the ovary, maturing them through the first 14 days. But now at the same time, that then causes estrogen to be produced, estradiol. That then is going to create a negative feedback cycle going back up to the anterior pituitary and the hypothalamus, preventing the secretion of further FSH and LH. It's not stopping the production, and production keeps going, just being stored. It's also heading down to the endometrium, which is causing initially the breakdown of the endometrial lining, but then the proliferative phase after that, the build up until ovulation. Now, ovulation occurs. Remember that during ovulation, there's an LH surge. So we have this huge amount of LH coming in, causing the ovulation to occur right at mid-cycle. That estradiol is because we have the positive feedback that triggered that. But notice, we're also in green going down to the endometrium. So that estradiol is also stimulating more at that point. But then if we leave ovulation and move into the final, or third phase, that's the luteal phase. In this luteal phase, remember, we now have progesterone and estrogen both being produced from the corpus luteum. It's trying to wait and see if you have anything occurring, implantation from fertilization in the endometrial lining. So it's kind of taking all these parts and pieces and putting them together. So here's one more that might help out. Now there is a lot of information here because it ties everything together. So I'm going to throw it up full screen. What we're looking at here, up top is looking at the ovarian cycle, FSH and LH levels. You can notice that FSH starts off in the first 3-4 days a little bit higher, but you have a kind of constant LH going through there. But look what happens. Here, we have a little bit of a dip in the LH. And then down here, we have an increasing level of estradiol. The estradiol is increasing until just before this mid-cycle point. You have that huge increase of estradiol going up. That then is stimulating this spike of LH, luteinizing hormone. That triggers the ovulation of the oocyte to occur. Now, if you look after that, LH dropped. It went down. But what went up instead is look at progesterone here. Progesterone had a large increase after ovulation. And that progesterone level stays up the second half of the cycle, the luteal phase. Estradiol is also elevated, but it's not as high. Now that stays up as long as the corpus luteum is producing the hormones. But now, if there is no fertilization, no implantation, then what happens, the corpus luteum breaks down to the corpus albicans. You'll notice at that point, look at the hormones here. FSH starts to increase again. That starts to increase because we have a drop in progesterone and estradiol, the estrogens, because the corpus luteum isn't producing them anymore. And at that exact point, look what happens down here. The endometrial lining starts to break down a little bit because there's no more estrogen and progesterone maintaining it. So therefore, you start having that stratum functionalis, and those arteries start to spasm, the tissue starts to break down, and then you start the whole cycle anew. When the cycle is anew, FSH is a little higher here, estradiol is lower here, and it's at that point, the first 5 days, 4 to 5 days of the cycle, the rest of the stratum functionalis is breaking apart, degrading, and being sloughed off. And at that point also, once you know that there's no more corpus luteum here, you'll notice the new follicles are immediately starting to be ready. It doesn't even wait to the first day. It's happening at the end of the previous cycle once estrogen, the estradiol, and progesterone are dropping. So we have a lot of different things here all coming together, from the ovarian cycle and hormones to the uterine cycle and how the hormones play a part there as well. But this chart really gives a nice picture of showing how everything works together for one single picture, one cycle going throughout the system. Now, the female sexual response. In this case, it's similar to the male, as in blood is engorging. But it has a little bit different effect because it's not just one single place that blood's engorging and causing a larger change. Instead, the clitoris, vaginal mucosa, and the breasts all are having an increase in blood flow. And this increase in blood flow, this stimulation, is helping the vestibular gland to start secreting. It'll secrete the actual mucus solution that it has to help try to lubricate the vestibule of the vagina, basically the opening of the vagina. So it's creating this lubrication between the actual opening of the vagina as well as the labia minora, trying to basically prevent any friction from occurring upon penetration. So the female sexual response has a similar mirrored image to the male. Blood flow is increasing to certain key aspects of the body. So a little about, again, how the uterine ovarian cycles are working, how the hormones are working, and then the female sexual response.